I think independence is synonymous with trust. So when you say independence in marketing, I think independence in any function for that matter is a responsibility. It's quite like trust that you hand it over to them. Because when an independent function, in this case marketing, the whole organization is looking up to you because you're independent, and therefore you are able to give to the business what the business is asking for. So you have the responsibility. The business is looking up to you. You have the responsibility to upskill yourself, to learn from the latest trends, to build on the conventional practices and the new digital practices, and bring all of that into the organization. Because you are the independent, so to say, subject matter expert now, yeah? And that brings a lot of responsibility. And you also have the responsibility, and you can see how many times I've used the word responsibility, is because these two things come together, independence and responsibility, that you learn from it. So because life is not only about telling people and giving them subject matter inputs, but your subject matter inputs can never become expert input unless you go and learn from people on the front line, unless you go and learn from customers, unless you go and learn from other stakeholders. In this case, it could be your partners, your agencies. If you, as a function or a function head, or in whatever role you're doing, it's a state of mind, right? And therefore, if you're working in an organization which thinks like this, and you think like this, maybe you think even better than this, I think that is what seeds the independence, and then you start feeling that independence in the quality of work that function or that person does. How do you cultivate independent thinkers? And the word cultivate is a very strong word, and cultivate word brings hope. The word cultivate means there is a future, and the word cultivate means anything is possible. Because you can make things happen. When you're cultivating things, quite like in a farmland, and you're growing stuff, out of nothing, you build so much, right? So I think what you're trying to do here, and time talk about a point, is cultivating fertile minds and leveraging strengths. And in marketing, you often say, I created the demand. And some marketer came back and corrected it and said, you know what? No, you didn't create the demand, you tapped the demand. I heard somebody talking about, asking Michelangelo that, how do you make such beautiful sculptures? And Michelangelo said, you know what? I don't make beautiful sculptures. The sculptures are there in the rock. I just take off the waste rock away from the rock, and the sculptures come out. So therefore, in that sense, their independent thinkers are right there at all times. You need to tap into their creativity and create an environment wherein you're leveraging their strengths. Therefore, a number of things have to be done around this, in my view. The first and the very fundamental thing is the development approach that we follow at DHL, which is the 10-20-70 development approach. And it's a very celebrated and successful model. And by 10, I mean that you give formal training 10% of their time, 20% of the time, you coach them and you give feedback. Because, for whatever they're doing, if you're giving them feedback means, you're encouraging them for the great work they're doing, which builds their confidence. And feedback also means that, you're giving them development inputs, which is building their competence, right? So it's a scale, which you're building confidence and you're building competence. And that really creates, people who are able to perform at absolutely peak levels. So that's the development approach, 10, 20, 70, in 20 hours of coaching and feedback. And therefore 70 is the real thing, which is challenging assignments on the job. And I think that's something which the organizations have to do together with these independent thinkers, so that the assignments talk to the business. And there's something which I'm very, very fond of, and I use this word very often, and it's in Hindi, which says mitti ki khushboo, right? It applies more so in departments which are not on the front line, and therefore marketing department can sort of slip back away from the front line, doing a number of tasks which sometimes may or may not connect with what's happening on the front line. And therefore it's so important for folks in the marketing department to be talking all modern stuff and digital stuff. We will do this and we will do that, etc. But unless their work smells of mitti ki khushboo, which is what is really happening on the front line, their work will never connect. The next thing is also, orienting the big picture, which is what we call helicopter view. So therefore, however independent they are, the fact of the matter is that in an organization, everybody is interdependent. You bring your independent thinking on the table, but you should know that, for your ideas, there has to be a feed of thought coming into your mind and what's happening in the business. So they have to be part of the core team. And independent function does not mean it has to sit outside the team. They have to be part of the core team so that they're connected with the business. The structured involvement they have with the business, with the front line, with the customers, and with stakeholders. So therefore, at all times, they are orienting the big picture. The way you create independent thinkers is by the culture of the organization. How is it that you have diversity seeping into each and every department, diversity, inclusion, belonging, these concepts, how do they find their place into everything that you do? Because fact of the matter is that people who come from diverse backgrounds also bring diverse perspectives on the table. I think when you say marketing as an independent function, I think the biggest strength that this model will have is that you put marketing in the driver's seat. If marketing is an independent function, I think the biggest strength that it brings to their mindset is suddenly they're in the driver's seat. Weakness could be that, if you do not live the ethos of an independent function and a responsible function, and you are not able to connect with the business and you lose that connect, but you work from your hoity-toity cabins and you stock all that jazzy stuff. And, I'm going digital and I'm working with this agency and this is a new campaign I'm working on. There's a risk that you may lose connect with the business. You may lose connect with what really needs to be done. You may just lose connect with what's really happening in the world out there. I think the opportunity for an independent function is also to bring fresh perspective. The more you look outside what's happening in the external environment, you learn from your partners, your agencies, other companies, and there's so much to learn from everybody, right? And the biggest room in the world is the room for learning, and therefore the opportunity is to get best practices into your organization. So I think a combination of what's happening outside, what is your inherent strength, and to leverage that can be a huge opportunity. Threat could be that that if some you fall prey to your weakness, and it's possible that that you may become inconsistent with your overall brand messaging, with what you really stand for, and therefore there is always a threat that you may tend to lose out vis-a-vis the other market forces that exist.